You know, I've been around for a while. I've met some interesting people. Done some crazy things. You'd think that there wasn't much that could take me by surprise. You'd be wrong. The world is full of stories and science and things that amaze and confound me every single day. Incredible mysteries that keep me awake at night. Some I can answer, and others just defy logic.
Is someone or something controlling our minds remotely? In Colorado, a man finds a mysterious object in his body.
It probably had to be extraterrestrial in nature.
Are the brains of humans being monitored from outer space? In St. Louis, a séance turns a housewife into a literary genius.
She dictated 7 books, thousands of poems, short stories. It's incredible.
Can the dead take over the minds of the living? And in California, a woman causes machines and people to go haywire.
Electrical equipment didn't work anymore, my computer, my TV.
Is her mind being remotely controlled by the government?
Yeah, it's a weird world, and I love it. Frightening, isn't it? There's an actual X-ray of construction worker Patrick Lawler. He went to the dentist complaining of a toothache. Instead, he found a 4-inch nail embedded in his skull from his nail gun. It's amazing what you can find inside people. Here's another, a cell phone hidden inside an inmate. How did he get my phone number? And this one, a man who accidentally swallowed some scissors while using them as a toothpick. And, here's one of mine. Well, never mind. Despite being bizarre, all of these things are easily explainable, except this one. This was found inside another man. A man who has no idea what it is or how it got there, or even if it came from Earth.
Yuma County, Colorado, 1998. Cement contractor Tim Cullen is on a routine job when he suffers an injury.
I was doing some work for a farmer early in the summertime, and I'd hit my thumb with a hammer, melted it pretty good. My wife, she's a nurse. She said, well, you might as well go, why don't you go to the doctor and get it looked at.
Tim's thumb turns out to be fine, but the doctor who examines him finds something else, something he can't explain.
The doctor took an x-ray, and he said, you have something in your arm? And I said, no. He said, you got any idea where it come from?
Tim is baffled by the news.
The object in the x-ray is kind of a bright triangle in the x-ray. Real bright, right next to my wrist bone. It was kind of interesting to know that something got in my body. I really didn't know anything about it.
The doctor decides to operate, but during the surgery, something extraordinary happens.
They were doing the surgery, and I got to watch it on a fluoroscope. As the doctor got ready to remove the object, when he got close to it, it seemed to move away from the forceps that he was going to remove the object with. Like the object sensed that it was going to be removed. They finally got a hold of it, and that's when my arm really got to hurt, and got it drawn up near the surface and put the snip on it, took it loose.
As the doctor examines the object, he realizes why it reacted strangely. Inside a membrane is a core of metal. There are also proprioceptors, wire-like appendages that seem to be connected to nerve endings leading to his hand.
There was no anti-rejection structures around the whole object at all. The body doesn't even know it's there. I mean, it's metal, and nothing more foreign to the body than metal.
At first, Tim makes a steady recovery, but his health suddenly begins to decline.
My mental ability started sliding downhill. My ability to concentrate and to stay awake went downhill really rapidly. It's just like I dropped my wheel. I feel like instead of being a 60-year-old man, I have to take a nap like an 80, 85-year-old man.
Certain his health issues are connected to the object, Tim searches his memory for clues. Then it hits him, a mysterious incident 20 years earlier that made no sense at all, until now.
We were coming back one night. It was evening, late night, probably 11 o'clock or so. Coming up Highway 59, and we encountered this craft in front of us. Looked like it was about 100 foot long. It looked like a cigar. There were some lights on it.
Tim stops for a better view. Whatever it is, moves like nothing on Earth.
It crossed the road, crossed over the fence and under the telephone lines. And the next thing you know, bingo, it's kind of by the car, and then it's back up here. And my wife and I sat there, and 2 lights came on. They were really bright, because like I say, my peripheral vision was kind of gone.
Time seems to stand still for Tim and his wife.
After the lights came on, and my wife and I were sitting there in the car for what I perceive is 4 or 5 minutes. It was a mind-bending experience for me at the time. We sat there wondering what to do, thinking about it, and then I looked at the wife and said, let's go.
When they arrive home, they discover they've been gone not for minutes, but hours. Tim can't account for the lost time.
There was lots of things that may have happened, I don't know. But missing time, I don't get remembered. And it does make it interesting for me.
There is one thing Tim is sure of. He was taken on board an alien spaceship and implanted with the metal object. Why?
The aliens want to interfere with my thought processes for some reason. It's a form of mind control. We're not the only intelligent mortal life form in this universe. It makes me wonder why me? And I truly do. I'll never get over it.
This is weird. Or what? A guy doing some simple DIY ends up finding this thing inside him. Can Tim Cullen be right? Was this device created by an extraterrestrial, then implanted in his arm during an alien abduction and used somehow to control his mind? It's an incredible concept, isn't it? But I have an even more important question. When will they be on sale at Radio Shack?
What happened to Tim Cullen? Did an alien life form implant a device inside him to control his mind? Ex-police officer Daryl Sims is known as the alien hunter. He counsels people who claim they've been abducted by extraterrestrials.
Our abductees range from everything from housewives, husbands, they work, hard-working people. We've got 3 NASA scientists that are abductees, one of them with implants. An alien implant is an object or a device that is surreptitious, and it is parasitic, and it's installed in a human being, and it's done for specific reasons. Most of the time, people that have implants don't even know they're there. They have no clue. They'll have a car accident, they'll be in any kind of an accident, or we have to go to a doctor, and the doctor will do an x-ray, and he'll overlap some area and say, what in the world is that?
He's convinced Tim's UFO experience was not only real, it wasn't his first.
He's a typical individual that had no clue what was going on. I suspect his events started very much younger in his life. Many people who find out they're an abductee later in life don't realize that they've had events long before. Most of the time, not all the time, most of the time. Events start when you're quite young. And not only that, but the second question I would ask him, how many people in your family have you talked to about these events? Grandma, grandpa, aunts, uncles, and so on. You're gonna find you're not alone in your family. It is in your family lineage.
But why did Tim have no memory of what happened?
Once the encounter takes place, they leave on the individual what is called a screen memory. This is often the true false memory syndrome. They leave an imagery and thoughts and feelings with you. The majority of them are not pleasant experiences.
Despite this, Tim knew something inexplicable was happening to his body and his mind.
For the first 20 years when I had the implant in my body, I believe I was smarter. My mental function was greatly enhanced. I believe the implant was there to mentally stimulate me.
The implant was affecting his neurotransmitters, chemicals that regulate mood, behavior, and other critical functions in the brain.
Abductees often feel, why am I having these feelings? Their levels of serotonin and dopamine being altered, as one a psychologist told me, he says, anyone that can do that to you, I don't care who it is, they own you. They own your emotions, they own everything about you.
Sim says implants don't just change the way the brain works, they actually record what it's doing.
They're there to do a job, and one of the things they're to do is to collect huge amounts of information, particularly emotions, enormous amounts of emotions, a huge wide variety and span of emotions, and to collect them and to bring them back.
But why would aliens implant these devices in humans?
That's the $64,000 question. Everybody's focusing on the wrong thing. That's what bothers me. I come from an intelligence background. The whole thing's an intelligence problem. It always has been.
Did aliens try to control Timothy Cullen? Or is the true explanation more down to earth?
NASA knows where every bolt is floating around up there.
A mysterious object is found in a man's arm. Was it inserted by extraterrestrials in order to control him? Dr. Michael Shermer is the publisher of Skeptic magazine. He spent 30 years investigating alien stories.
The Tim Cullen story has been around for a long time in UFO lore. He's one of the handful that they hold up as somebody who came to the realization that he was abducted decades after the event happened. So this is in one of two categories of alien abduction stories. Those who remember it immediately, and they describe that they were asleep at night and so on, and those that remembered it decades later, triggered by perhaps regression analysis or just talking to other UFO abductees, and you get the idea going, like, hey, maybe this happened to me, and then you, in your mind, reconstruct it. So he's one of the latter. Yes, you hear about these implants with alleged microcircuitry and things like that. I've never seen one. I've never seen a published article about this. I've never heard of a scientist examining anything like that. Of all the implants that have been tested that I've seen, rigorously tested, they've all concluded that these were natural, earthbound artifacts. Shrapnel, piece of metal, splinter, that kind of thing. Not any kind of extraterrestrial.
Dr. Shermer has studied video of Tim's surgery. He saw nothing to suggest the object was controlling his brain.
Seeing the video of the surgeon removing it, it didn't look like that at all to me. It looked like it was actually quite loose in there, because as he was poking the tongs in there to grab it, it was moving around. It didn't look connected to any nerves at all.
But what about the strange membrane the doctor found?
We do know that something that's been in the body for a long time gets coated by the body. It's a way of protecting itself. That may look metal when you see it, but it's just actually some other organic material. And I suspect that's all it is. Our brains are really good at doing that, even with just random noise coming in. And so more cell phones, more internet websites, more information coming in only provides a greater sea of randomness from which the brain can find patterns. And so conspiracies are perfect examples of that.
Was Tim making it all up? Not necessarily. Dr. Shermer's sure Tim had some kind of traumatic experience, but pop culture made him blame it on ETs.
In the Middle Ages, the narratives talk about demons, because they live in a demon-haunted world. 200 years ago, 150 years ago, these were poltergeists and ghosts, because that's the world they lived in. Our century, aliens. So our anomalous psychological experiences are interpreted through that filter.
Colin Ross is a psychiatrist specializing in severe mental trauma. He agrees something was trying to control Tim Cullen, but it wasn't aliens.
I get contacted quite regularly by email and mail by people who absolutely firmly believe that they're being monitored and controlled remotely by the CIA, the military, or the government. They'll describe how they were involved in the military, how they had a security clearance, they got in some sort of beef with some other person, and then it all started.
But how could the government control someone's brain?
It's a known fact that from the documents, and this is going back 40, 50 years now, that you can control somebody's behavior remotely by activating an electrode that's in their brain. It's not a conspiracy theory, it's a medical proven fact.
Dr. Ross says the origins of mind control technology began from a desire to tap the skills of German scientists smuggled into the US after World War II.
Operation Paperclip is one of a series of projects that was created by the CIA after the Second World War, and it was to get control of the German scientists. So the US government wanted to bring a lot of expertise over to the United States. Rocket engineers, ball bearing manufacturers, film, whatever it might be, and brought them into the United States for use in research.
One of them, Dr. Werner von Braun, helped the Americans take the lead in the space race. Did another German scientist give the U.S. the edge in mind control? Dr. Ross thinks so, and that the U.S. is still using the technology.
I'm quite confident that there must be military and CIA implanted chips in people around the world for various purposes.
But why would the U.S. government want to control people's minds? Simple. To achieve global domination by turning ordinary people into fearless assassins, activated by remote control.
The way you control the behavior is kind of twofold. The electrode can actually activate part of your brain, or you can hypnotically condition a person. So the idea is you condition the person to have this new identity inside who's hidden behind an amnesia barrier. You call them out with a hypnotic code, give them the assignment. They go back inside, they carry out the assignment. If the out front person is captured and interrogated, has no information, no memory of it whatsoever. And there's documents going back into the 50s. This was actually done and used operationally by the military and the CIA, actually going back to the Second World War. The way I got into all that was I started hearing stories from patients in treatment that they had been programmed and conditioned by the CIA or the military. I thought, a little fantastic sounding, and decided to look into it.
Was Timothy Cullen being groomed as a covert government assassin? Are aliens trying to control his brain? Or did he just imagine the whole thing? Whatever the truth, it's weird, or what? A séance turns a housewife into a literary genius.
She only has an 8th grade education, which is quite amazing.
Hi. I'm just trying to contact the spirits. Oh. It's, I'll be with you in a minute. L. WTFLOL. Means nothing to me. But do Ouija boards really work? Millions think so. It was invented as a harmless parlor game over a century ago. Since then, it's become a tool regarded by many as the only genuine way we can communicate with the dead. Well, they're dead wrong. There's another way. And it won't just give you a few random letters, but enough to fill entire libraries. All you need is your mind.
July 8th, 1913, St. Louis, Missouri. At the height of the progressive era, the suffrage movement is working to bring women the vote and unshackle them from traditional roles. One of the newly liberated women is housewife Pearl Curran, who is enjoying a visit from her neighbor.
Pearl Curran was born in 1883. She only has an 8th grade education. She wasn't really passionate about anything.
Physicist and author Dr. Jan van der Zande is an expert on mediums and psychic phenomena.
She didn't read much, she didn't travel much. So here you have a lady who's, let's put it this way, boring.
The fashion of the day, Pearl and her friend are playing with a Ouija board, trying to contact spirits.
The Ouija board is a board where all the letters of the alphabet are in a circle. And in the center, you put a glass upside down. And then you have about 2 or 3 people in the room put their hands on the glass. And if someone there is a medium, the glass will start spelling out words.
Despite many attempts, they fail to raise the dead. But Pearl is persuaded to try one last time.
They were playing, and all of a sudden the thing really started moving. There was no way she knew where it was going. The spirits were using her to move the planchette on the Ouija board.
Someone or something is communicating with them. The glass begins to spell out a message.
Many moons ago I lived. Again I come. Patience worth my name. Wait, I would speak with thee. Good friends, let us be merry. The time for work is past. Let the tabby drowse and blink her wisdom to the fire log. Now that is not normal English.
They are connecting with someone named Patience Worth. Who was she?
Patience Worth claims she was born in 1649 in rural Dorchester in England. And when she was about 30, she claimed she came to the US in Nantucket, And there, when she was 44, 45, she was killed by the Indians.
Patience' essence is overwhelming. She is so powerful, Pearl suddenly realizes she no longer needs the Ouija board.
She starts getting the words before the thing even moves. So that's how she knew she was the medium. She's hearing the voices and the dictation from patients. And she's what they call a mental medium, where she's awake, and the spirit dictates, so she hears what the spirit says. The spirit doesn't take over. They don't take over her mind. They talk to her. This is what's called clairvoyance, where you have a medium giving a clairvoyance demonstration. She will go to the audience and say, I have this message for you. I have your uncle here and he's telling me this, or I see him standing beside you and he's telling me this. That's clairaudience, like she was, where she hears the voices. She was seeing images, pictures, while she was getting patients talk to her. And that was then written down. So that's how she developed.
Over the coming months, Pearl's literary output is prolific.
Patients dictated 7 books, thousands of poems, short stories. It's incredible.
Her stories are filled with obscure details of 17th century life, things she simply could not have known. Pearl publishes her work. The critics love it.
For example, the New York Tribune, it's a famous paper, review of a book called Hope True Blood, a work approximating absolute genius. I mean, what kind of comments are those? They're incredible comments. Then the New York Evening Post. The unusual distinction about this patient's worth is her exceptional, consistent intelligence. You ever talk about an 8th grade woman who's dictating this? Ladies Pictorial of London. This book will stand as a landmark of fiction by a new writer who will take a prominent place among great writers. This is what's so impressive about this woman and the books that she wrote down.
Pearl's unlikely transformation attracts the attention of skeptical scientists who seek a rational explanation.
Dr. Franklin Prince, he has a PhD from Yale, and he was the head of the American Society for Psychical Research. They asked him to investigate her. So he spent several weeks interviewing her, sitting in on her sessions when she was writing.
But the doctor finds no evidence of deception.
His conclusions were that Mrs. Curran was not fraudulent, and she was not nuts or anything like that. She was a normal person.
Patience and Pearl's ghostwriting partnership continues for almost a quarter of a century, until 1937, when, in an eerie twist, Patience uses her final message to deliver a chilling prediction.
Patience actually told her in her last communication that the end was drawing near. And all of a sudden she got sick and she died. There's no doubt about it in my mind. This is a case of mental mediumship where spirits communicate with her.
It's an incredible story. You know, people often ask me if I use a ghostwriter with all these memoirs and novels and poetry that I've published over the years, and I'm not ashamed to say I do. Not that I couldn't do it all by myself, obviously. I'm a busy guy with a busy schedule. As is Fred, he's very talented. What you got going for me today? I told you to stay off of Facebook when you're on working hours, Fred. I want you to send a note to my wife. Tell her I'm with her in spirit.
How did Pearl Curran write so accurately about things she knew nothing about? Can paranormal entities take over our minds? Professor Stephen Browdy is an expert in parapsychology and editor-in-chief of the Journal of Scientific Exploration.
I personally don't think Pearl Curran was channeling an entity, Patience Worth. The character Patience Worth provided very few clues about her alleged earthly life. Just that she lived in the 17th century around Dorset in England, at some point came to the US, and was killed in some kind of battle with Native Americans. That's pretty much all we know. So there's very little evidence. And what you look for in a good case suggesting survival after death is, first of all, somebody manifesting knowledge or abilities closely associated or uniquely associated with some deceased person. And you need evidence suggesting that those abilities or that knowledge were not acquired through normal means. We don't see that in the Patience Worth case.
So who was the literary genius? For Browdy, the answer is easy: Pearl Curran.
My best guess about the Patience Worth case is that Pearl Curran was a kind of dissociative virtuoso, somebody who could go into a kind of altered state, and in that state access various abilities and reservoirs of knowledge that ordinarily were not at her disposal. In Pearl's case, I think she went into a kind of light trance at the Ouija board, a kind of dissociative state, and in that state she was able to bypass certain barriers to creativity she had erected through most of her life.
Was Pearl Curran a world-class writer without even knowing it? If so, Braude's theory leaves a nagging question.
One of the main and lingering puzzles about the case is how Pearl Curran acquired the knowledge that she did of life in England during the Victorian era so that she could write her novel Hope Trueblood. It's possible that she might have encountered some of the materials in her everyday life. My suggestion about this is that Pearl Curran had some latent and quite formidable linguistic talents, which were just waiting for the proper time to nurture them and to bring them out.
Was Patience Worth just the name Pearl Curran gave to her inner author? How did she know so much about things she hadn't experienced?
She was just getting it directly from that time, from that space.
A poorly educated housewife becomes a literary master. Did she possess hidden talents? Cynthia Larson doesn't think so. She's an author and expert on the physics of reality, the building blocks of everything we know and experience.
The Pearl Curran story is extraordinary, and when I first heard about it, I was amazed with the syntax, the language, and the everyday experiences.
How did Pearl access this ancient knowledge in perfect detail? Quantum physics, of course.
My theory about Pearl Curran is that she was quantum jumping back in time and making several jumps back to different points in space and time, and doing so due to the fact that we are all, even though we're on a very large scale, we're capable of doing things at the quantum scale, such as making a quantum jump. And this is exactly what happened with Pearl Curran. If you can imagine this universe as consisting of very many parallel, alternate realities, then what you're doing is actually choosing which one of those you want to go to, establishing a kind of a connection to it through some meditative process, and then bringing the correct energy to it to make that jump.
In addition to alternate realities, Larson thinks quantum jumps can take us both backward and forward in time.
Usually when we think of time travel, we think in terms of time being linear. What's extremely different about quantum jumping is that we're working with the theory that we have many worlds, many alternate realities. That means there were many possible beginnings. We're right now moving toward many possible futures, and currently, right here and right now, we have access to an infinite number of possible alternate realities. In terms of scientific research, there's no exact evidence and proof that quantum jumping is occurring. There are, however, some exciting findings right now with quantum behavior occurring at the macro level. And some of this experimental work has been done recently in Oxford, England, where a couple of diamonds 15 centimeters apart were entangled. That means that they were precisely moving in conjunction with one another at room temperature, which is a big deal, separated 15 centimeters apart. So what we're witnessing is seeing some of these very small scale micro level effects, the quantum effects, at the macro level. And that's forcing us to rethink all of our assumptions about what reality really is.
Quantum jumping into the past might explain how Pearl wrote with such vivid detail. But how did she do it?
When people have this experience, they often are in a meditative state. I think what Pearl was able to do by staying in that mindset, she was literally making what you might call a quantum jump into that reality, that for her it was extremely real. And so when the words came through, it wasn't something that she was interpreting, she was just getting it directly from that time, from that space. What makes Pearl Curran's story so believable is we can see that she was clearly connecting with very definite times and spaces.
Did Pearl Curran access some hidden talent to write her novels? Or was she quantum leaping back and forth through time? Psychic Ellie Crystal sees no need to dispute Curran's version of events.
Pearl could not have known the information that she was writing about. She did not have access to the computer technologies we have today. Pearl wrote all her books based on her connections with the collective unconscious and an entity she called Patience Worth.
But how was she able to contact the spirit? Crystal is certain that Pearl was, like herself, a psychic.
As a psychic, you're moving your consciousness from this reality to another reality, getting information and bringing it back.
To show just how easy it is to tap into information from the dead, Crystal is going to demonstrate by contacting the spirit of none other than Pearl Curran.
The energy of Pearl is still in the grids. Pearl is saying, she's showing me 2 keys. Beautiful gold keys. She's writing now.
Crystal says this kind of channeling is called automatic writing.
The waters will be big. The land areas will fall. She has more to say. She's coming back into me again, though. No World War III. No World War III. No World War III. 2012. 2012. 2012. The balance scales over here. Like a kid's seesaw. When I'm doing automatic writing, I just let my hand go across the page and write whatever comes out, and it just goes and goes and goes to a point where you just have this feeling of being complete. And then you look down and you see what you wrote.
Is this how Pearl wrote her bestsellers?
If you can look at our reality as a hologram, okay? It's consciousness, it's like a hologram, and it's made up of grids. Within those grids is everything that ever existed in this reality or anything else that's going on simultaneous to it. What she did as a channeler, she would take her pen and her paper and she would tap into the grids. It's not a magical thing, it's really all science and math. Automatic writing is something you come back to all the time and you keep writing and writing. It can get very addictive also.
Did Pearl Curran travel back in time and report what she saw? Did she contact a long-dead spirit to write her novels? Or was she tapping into an ability she never knew she had? We may never know. Weird or what? In California, a woman causes machines and people to go haywire.
Electrical equipment didn't work anymore. My computer, my TV.
Oh my God. You know, I wish I had one of these when I was a kid. Isn't this amazing? It's hard to believe, isn't it? I can control every movement of this tiny device. Up, yeah, and watch this. Down, down, up. I have complete power over it. I can make it perform even the most intricate of maneuvers without even... Guess I need more practice. Wireless devices like this are no longer a novelty. But what if instead of a helicopter, you could control someone's brain? Now that would make for an interesting story. Here it is.
September 1988. It is the start of the fall semester at the University of California, Davis, where Cheryl Welch is beginning life as a law student.
I grew up in Sacramento, California. I was a receptionist at Kaiser Hospital for 10 years. I decided that I wanted to go back to school, so I went to UC Davis.
But as her studies get underway, things change.
I know what normal life is, and life became very abnormal.
It starts with her telephone.
Usually you pick up a phone, you hear dial tone, but my phone, there would be click noises. There'd be a long pause, then static.
She has it checked, but the strange noises continue. Cheryl becomes concerned. It's the first of many appliances that behave erratically in her presence.
Things in my environment, all of the electrical equipment didn't work anymore. My computer, my TV.
Her unease grows as she discovers it's not only machines that act strangely around her.
Police cars started to follow me. I had a rock thrown at my car. Somebody tried to drive me off the road. I mean, I've never had a ticket. I've never taken drugs. People in my environment were acting out of character. I was acting my normal self. And people were acting weird. People turned against me. People would stare at you. Students would swear and spit on me.
Weirder still, random strangers on the street seem to know exactly what she's thinking.
I felt like I was surveilled. I thought somebody could read my thoughts.
Cheryl's personal life falls apart as friends and family drift away. Then, she's fired from her job.
It was like shock and awe. For 3 years, it was like that. I realized, you know, this wasn't going to go away, despite my best efforts. That was a really depressing, blackest moment of my life. I just cried and cried and cried. I thought, why not just end it?
Fearing for her sanity, Cheryl seeks help.
So I went to my advisor, and I was having trouble academically, and she helped me get through this, and he was the only one that believed me.
Her advisor comes to a quick conclusion. Cheryl is the victim of a deliberate and organized campaign of harassment. But who is behind it?
First, we checked out. We thought, maybe there's a psychology experiment. They're trying to stress you out. There was no psychology experiment. So I hired private investigators, and I tried to figure out if there were any bugs in my apartment. Nothing. Talking to my advisor, we both figured only the government would have this kind of control over your telephone or what you did in the privacy of your apartment.
Deciding to investigate, Cheryl gains access to government documents. They reveal the unthinkable. A top-secret experiment is subjecting everyday citizens to mind control.
Major countries have developed this secret mind control technology, especially Russia and the United States.
She's convinced the people who harassed her were under mind control and didn't even know it.
Somebody is making them do things, you know, without their knowing it.
But why choose Cheryl?
You're going to need to experiment on a lot of people. You can't do it ethically, so you're going to do it covertly, you know.
She thinks she knows what put her on the government's radar.
Before I went to UC Davis, I went to the Army recruiting office. I filled out the forms, I put in my application, but I went to UC Davis instead. And then after that was when this happened. After networking with other victims, they have that connection. Former people who applied to the CIA, former people who have relatives in the government or the CIA are often targets.
Are the minds of innocent citizens being controlled by government-sanctioned experiments? Is Cheryl Welch telling the truth, or are her claims absurd? Just another conspiracy theory that's impossible to prove? Maybe, but not if you listen to Nick Begich.
I think there's some good evidence that Cheryl Welch and many of the other people I've spoken with have been victimized by this electromagnetic mind control experiments. The weapons of this century aren't bombs and bullets and ordnance, but electromagnetic energy targeting the human being, which is a greatest revolution in military affairs since gunpowder.
Begich is an expert in government mind control. He is convinced the Pentagon has mastered a technology once thought to be science fiction, the ability to broadcast information directly into the human brain.
Our government began spending a lot of time looking at how to modify behavior of human beings. Going back to the Korean War, in fact, in a publication, Low-Intensity Conflict in Modern Technology, they have a chapter on electromagnetic weapon systems, being able to not just to debilitate someone, but actually even to stimulate certain activities within the brain.
But how?
HAARP is the High Frequency Active Auroral Research Project, which started as a joint effort of the Air Force and Navy. This is a very large array or field of antennas based in Alaska, radio frequency antennas. And normally when radio frequency energy comes off of an antenna, it spreads out, just like shining a light on the wall. It follows the same principles in physics. The light spreads out, becomes less dense, radio signals become less dense, so the further you get away from the transmitter, the weaker the signal. With HAARP, what they do is use an array or field of antennas. Right now there's 180 in that array. What they do is create a cyclotron resonance, which is could be visualized as sort of a corkscrewing motion of the energy, and as it goes higher and higher, it gets tighter and tighter.
HAARP antennas transmit powerful radio signals into the upper atmosphere to study the effects on wireless communications. But Begich says HAARP can also be used for more sinister ends.
HAARP has announced several other programs and campaigns, and there's two areas that I got very concerned about. One was weather modification applications. The other was the effect on human beings. If you can modulate a signal that the brain locks onto, recognizes, and begins to mirror or follow the frequency following response. The brain rhythms change, then it creates a chemical cascade within the brain, and the emotions change. Now the resolution gets finer and finer and finer. And it used to just to be about triggering emotions. You could change people's brain chemistry pretty readily, change their emotional state pretty easily. But when you get down to the idea of thoughts and being able to manipulate those, that requires a different kind of sophistication.
Can we hear sounds without using our ears? Not only is it possible, says Begich, he can prove it using sound recordist Brad Daw.
So what I'm going to demonstrate is a earth pulse sound wave, and what this is an infrasound device. It's just a small electronic circuit that we run a CD player playing some Bach into our circuit, and then comes out through two piezoelectric transducers. So I'm going to place these transducers on your face. You're going to block your ears tightly. We put those in contact with the skin and listen.
Yeah.
So what do you hear?
I hear the music, yeah, loudly.
Right in the center of their forehead, inside their head, they'll hear Bach, just like they would with their ears, but the ears aren't involved. Now, I can take this away. If you'd hold this on there with one finger.
Yeah.
And then we'll show that this current actually can transit. So it only works when I touch your head or when I touch your skin, but essentially the current's going through both of us, but the signal does not go down. It maintains sound volume.
It wasn't through my ears at all. It was basically, it felt like kind of it was coming from the middle of my head, no direction, and it was clear. So not through my ears at all, which is pretty cool.
Now we can do this wirelessly with microwave. So there's lots of ways to do it, and this just gives a very simple sort of workbench model that gives the principle so people can understand, yeah, you can really do it.
It's just long death, man. I got a head back early. Now, this is a fascinating theory, but there's just one problem. I'm not sure these piezoelectric transducers are going to catch on as a fashion accessory. And frankly, I don't even know what piezoelectric means. But if we're to believe Begich, the government don't even need these. They're tapping directly into our minds, controlling us with powerful, invisible microwaves that can alter the very way we think and act, making us believe anything they want us to. And that's just the Republicans.
Is the government manipulating our minds wirelessly, or does the answer lie elsewhere?
There's some kind of organization out to get them.
A California woman suffers a brutal campaign of harassment. Is the government trying to control her mind? Clinical psychologist J. Ryan Fuller believes Cheryl's experience isn't due to harassment, but mental illness.
When I heard of some of the things that were described, certainly bring to mind the kinds of content that sometimes people with psychotic disorders have.
He thinks Cheryl has a classic case of delusional disorder.
A delusional disorder is a particular type of psychotic disorder where there's going to be false belief that's held very, very strongly despite evidence being presented again and again to a person. And it's going to be, in that case, when it's a non-bizarre kind of delusion, information that people within that cultural group would believe could happen, but in this case, there doesn't seem to be any evidence to support it. So one might think that their spouse is constantly cheating, and that would be a jealous type. If it's a persecutory type, it could be that I'm being harassed by the police or the FBI, despite the facts that there isn't evidence to confirm that that's actually going on. And so I might believe that my mother-in-law is trying to poison me with her cooking. It's something that could happen in the real world, but there isn't any evidence to confirm it.
But what about the strangers who spit at Cheryl in the street?
The interpretation that people are going to be insulting them or hostile or have malicious intent is very, very common. It could be that I'm being harassed by the police or the FBI. There's a conspiracy. There's some kinds of organization or people kind of out to get them that's going to sort of lead to sort of suspiciousness and hypervigilance and things like that.
Ironically, Cheryl could be making it worse.
There is evidence, in fact, that by struggling with it and sort of fighting it and working to change it, that does, in fact, increase the one's stress level and increase anxiety. And now, more than in years past, there's a growing body of literature that, in fact, changing that dynamic, not necessarily changing the belief system, the delusions, but rather changing the strategy of fighting it might be a way to help treat these people. If you think about the delusions themselves, and it really does depend on the content and the person, because someone could be putting themselves and others at great risk, because there are cases where someone with a delusional disorder can be, angry, aggressive, and even physically violent. There are other cases where the real harm is going to come from the negative emotions they experience as a function of the belief. So they end up becoming incredibly depressed, incredibly anxious, incredibly lonely, socially isolating. And so now they're not only suffering all the emotional pain, now they're also denying themselves the social support and possibly the kinds of meaning and vitality they might get from other kind of life pursuits. And so there can be a great deal of suffering.
Is Cheryl Welch suffering from delusions? Or is the real explanation even more out there? Trish McGregor has written about the paranormal for over 30 years. She thinks she can explain at least one of Cheryl's experiences, her strange encounters with electrical equipment.
My theory about Cheryl Welch is it could be the Pauli effect. The Pauli effect is a label, a term, that grew out of a phenomenon that used to happen whenever Wolfgang Pauli, who was a theoretical physicist, would walk into a science lab and equipment would spontaneously break down.
Wolfgang Pauli was a brilliant Nobel Prize-winning physicist who counted Einstein himself among his many admirers. But Pauli is also remembered for his ability to cause lab equipment to malfunction simply by being near it.
In 1950, he walked into a lab in Princeton where they had a particle accelerator, and it caught on fire and burned. This lab in Hamburg banned Pauli from the lab. I mean, that's how prominent this whole phenomenon became.
Even stranger, the Pauli effect didn't stop at the laboratory.
On Pauli's second honeymoon, he and his wife set off for a car trip. He had a new battery in the car, and the battery died. And Pauli said, the Pauli effect, here it is. It would happen in other strange ways, too. One time in Hamburg, Pauli and two friends met for lunch. And after the 3-hour lunch, the two friends realized that the entire time they had been sitting in whipped cream. And Pauli hadn't. It wasn't the fact that he was a klutz. It wasn't like he was stumbling into equipment. He would walk in, and without doing anything, the equipment would spontaneously just break down. They kept saying, oh, it's coincidence. This is scientifically impossible. And yet it kept happening.
Is Cheryl suffering from the Pauli effect? McGregor says we can't dismiss the possibility.
I don't think we can say to Cheryl Welch, what you experience is not real, because it is. It's real to her.
Cheryl Welch, the victim of a series of bizarre coincidences? Was she the target of a government experiment in mind control? Or is it all in her head? Weird, or what? So there we have it. 3 stories of mind control. An implant turbocharges a man's brain. Is it an alien device? A housewife turns into a literary genius. Is she channeling a spirit from the 17th century? And a woman suffers a bizarre campaign of harassment. Is she a guinea pig for a secret technology? You decide.
Join me next time for more stories that will undoubtedly be weird or what.